Good morning, dear children. In today's class, we will learn the first lesson, sources, in detail. So, what are the importance we will learn in this lesson means the sources, how it is important for the history. Next, the types of sources of history. Next, the importance of the archaeological sources and the inscriptions and the oral sources in history. So, these are the things we will learn in this lesson. Now, what is the meaning of history? History is the systematic study of the past. The first paragraph. History is a systematic study of the past means what? Studying about the past events, what has happened before. Studying about our ancestors, we call what? The history. So how we know about the past events without evidences or without witnesses? So there must be a witness or the source must be available for the study of the past event, right? So that is only we call what? Sources. For example, in our body. In the body, for the construction of our body, the skeleton is very important, is not it? So the same here also for the construction of the history, the sources are very important. Here you can see some pictures of the inscriptions and coins. These are called what? Sources. Then who studies about these available sources? For them we call what? Historians. Historians collect the sources at first. Then they will subject them. Then they give the deep discussion. Afterwards they will analyze analysis ಅಂದರೆ ಏನು ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆಯನ್ನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. Then only they will write it as a history. Next, in the second paragraph, what is the meaning of sources particularly? The sources are the human being had created many facilities to lead their life since ancient times. If the things used by the human beings in the past have remained, then they are called as the sources by the historians. So what are the things the historians called as the sources? Sources are the remaining parts that is used by the ancient people which they created the many facilities to lead their life better. ಅಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ಹಳೆಯ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದಂತಹ ಪಳೆಯುಳಿಕೆಗಳು ಹಿಸ್ಟೋರಿಯನ್ಸ್ ಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ ದಟ್ಸ್ ಆಲ್. So different kind of sources are available in history. It may be the written form or in the oral form. At first, in sources, there are two kinds. They are literary sources and archaeological sources. So, observe the textbook, the page number 1, my dears. Literary sources and archaeological sources. In literary sources, there are other divisions. They are written literature and oral literature. So, no need to get confusion. Literary sources, archaeological sources are the main important parts of the sources. Then, in literary sources, there are two divisions. They are written literature and oral literature. At first, the written literature is the main source of the literary source. So it is very important in the literary sources. Written literature means ಬರವಣಿಗೆ ಶೈಲಿಯಲ್ಲಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಆಧಾರಗಳು. So that is very important in the literary sources. So literature can bring the contemporary social life of the times. The writer alive to us. Contemporary means the ಸಮಕಾಲೀನ ಭಾರತದ ಒಂದು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ನ ನಾವು ಈ ಒಂದು ಲಿಟ್ರರಿ ಸೋರ್ಸಸ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮಗೆ ಅವೈಲಬಲ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಆ ಲಿಟ್ರರಿ ವರ್ಕ್ ಪೋರ್ಟ್ರೇಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಎಕ್ಸಿಸ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಐದರ್ ಡಿರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ ಆರ್ ಇಂಡಿರೆಕ್ಟ್ಲಿ. ಇಟ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ವಾಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಗಿವ್ಸ್ ದ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷವಾಗಿ ಅಥವಾ ಪರೋಕ್ಷವಾಗಿ ಯಾವುದಾದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೊಂದು ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ನ ನಮಗೆ ಕೊಡುತ್ತೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ದ ಟೂ ಟೈಪ್ಸ್ ವಿಚ್ ಆರ್ ದೋಸ್ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್. ವಾಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದ ಮೀನಿಂಗ್ ಆಫ್ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್? ದ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ದ ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ರೈಟರ್ಸ್, ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಪೊಯೆಟ್ಸ್, ಇಂಡಿಯನ್ ಕಿಂಗ್ಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ರಿಟನ್ ಇನ್ ದೇರ್ ಓನ್ ಲ್ಯಾಂಗ್ವೇಜ್ ಈಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್. For example, which are the languages they have been used? Sanskrit, Prakrit, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil, Hindi, Marathi, Kashmiri, Gujarati, Oriya, and etc. etc. In many languages, they have written their own works. For example, Kautilya's Arthashastra. So Kautilya, his another name is Chanakya. He was in the court of Chandragupta Maurya or in the Mauryan kingdom. So he has written the Arthashastra book. Kautilya has written the Arthashastra. It is also an example for the native literature. Next, King Hala. He has written Gatasaptasadi. Next, Vishakadatta. He has written the Muddha Rakshasa. Next, Rajatarangini is written by Kalhana. Next, Banabhatta has written the Harsha Charita. Chand Bardai. He he has written the Prithviraja Raso. Pampa, he has written the Vikramarjuna Vijaya. So etc etc we can see the native literature. So these all native literature give the clear picture about the contemporary social, religious, economics, cultural and the political life of the people, how the contemporary people have been led their life, their political style, their religious style, their economic style, everything we will has been discussed, has been noted down in the native literary works. So these are about the native literature. Next, we will move to the foreign literature. What is the meaning of foreign literature? Native literature means the native people or the native kingdom, kings, poets has been written. The foreign literature means the name only saying many foreigners who visited India as travelers, ambassadors, businessmen and officials and the missionaries. They have recorded their observations and the experiences in their work. It means so many foreigners have been visited to different kingdoms and different courts for the different purposes. ಅಂದರೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ಹಲವೊಂದು ಉದ್ದೇಶಗಳನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅವರು ಇಂಡಿಯಾನ ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯಾ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ? ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಮೆನಿ ಕೇಮ್ ಫಾರ್ ದ ವಿಸಿಟಿಂಗ್, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸಮ್ಮನ್ ಕೇಮ್ ಆಸ್ ಅನ್ ಅಂಬಾಸಿಡರ್ ಅಂದರೆ ರಾಯಭಾರಿಗಳಾಗಿ ಬಂದರು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ವ್ಯಾಪಾರಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಬಂದರು, ಕೆಲವೊಬ್ಬರು ಧರ್ಮ ಪ್ರಚಾರವನ್ನು ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೋಸ್ಕರ ಬಂದರು. ದ ಫಾಹಿಯಾನ್, he has written Gokoki, Huyen Sang, he wrote the Siyuki, next Ptolemy wrote the geography, next Farista he has written or his work is Tariq-e-Farista, next Babar he visited the country then, and his observation shared in the Tuzuk-e-Babari and the other important sources also available. So these all foreign literature gives the contemporary social, political, economic, their culture and the administrative aspects. The contemporary ಅಂದರೆ ಹೇಳಿದ್ನಲ್ಲ ಸಮಕಾಲೀನ ಭಾರತದ ಒಂದು ಸೋಷಿಯಲ್, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್, ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್, ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ and their administration, everything is discussed in their works. So these are the foreign literatures. My dears, these native and foreign literature both gives the contemporaries clear pictures. ಅವರದು ಒಂದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕ ಜೀವನ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ರಾಜಕೀಯ ಎಕನಾಮಿಕ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಆರ್ಥಿಕ ಜೀವನಗಳಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಸಾಂಸ್ಕೃತಿಕ ಜೀವನ, ಅಡ್ಮಿನಿಸ್ಟ್ರೇಟಿವ್ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ಆಡಳಿತ ಇರಬಹುದು, ಎವ್ರಿಥಿಂಗ್ ಈಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ಡ್ ಇನ್ ದಿ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಫಾರಿನ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್. ಸೊ ಥ್ರೂ ದಿಸ್ ವೇ ವಿ ವಿಲ್ ಲರ್ನ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಪ್ರರಿ ವರ್ಲ್ಡ್ಸ್, ದ ಕಂಟೆಂಪ್ರರಿ ಇಂಡಿಯಾಸ್ ಕ್ಲಿಯರ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್. ಸೊ ಇದು ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ ರಿಟರ್ನ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ನೇಟಿವ್ ಮತ್ತು ಫಾರಿನ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ ಎರಡು ಡಿವಿಷನ್ಸ್ಗಳು. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟು ಓರಲ್ ಲಿಟ್ರೇಚರ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡೋಣ. Here the oral literature means it is only mainly based on the folk songs, folk stories. It means what ದಂತಕಥೆಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ ಅಥವಾ ಜಾನಪದ ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯಗಳು ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಈ ರೀತಿಯಾಗಿ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಂದ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಗೆ ಪಾಸ್ ಆದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಸ್ಟೋರಿಗಳನ್ನು ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಕಲಿತೀವಿ. ಸೊ ಇದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಓರಲ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್ ಅಂತ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ಫಾರ್ ಎಕ್ಸಾಂಪಲ್ ಇನ್ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ಸ್ ಫೋರ್ಟ್, ಇಫ್ ವಿ ವಿಸಿಟ್ ಟು ದ ಫೋರ್ಟ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ means there the guide will give the different kinds of stories he will explains, right? So that is an example for the a story type. So still the ಟಿಪ್ಪು ಸುಲ್ತಾನ್ದು ಏನು 17th ಸೆಂಚುರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಓದಿರೋದಲ್ವ ಮಕ್ಕಳೇ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ಸ್ಟೋರಿ ಟೈಪ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ತಿಳ್ಕೊಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಲೈಕ್ ಅ ಓರಲ್ ಲಿಟರೇಚರ್. Next, one more suitable example of Talakadu and Mysuru kingdom, right? So in Talakadu stories, example for the oral literature. So these type of oral literatures pass from generation to generation and mouth to mouth, the person to person, we can understand the stories of the olden times. Next, another example for the oral literature is some legendary stories like the names of the places, Shravanabelagula, why the Shravanabelagula named as the Shravanabelagula, why the Bengaluru is called as the Bengaluru, next Koppala, Pattadakallu. These are also some legendary stories which is example for the oral literature. Our capital city Bengaluru, it was called as a Bendakaluru. So who named the Bendakaluru? So Sangali Rayana named the Bendakaluru. So these are the stories we call what the mythological stories or the legendary stories. So these are also the example for the oral literature. This much is enough for today's class. Next we will meet you with another video. Thank you.